think I'm live. So, hey everybody, welcome back to the Spiral Podcast. Sorry for not posting those videos earlier this week. I was, pretty busy, and honestly, that's not bad. But, anyways, we're back at it today, and we're going to be talking about the Ohio State game. And really, this Ohio State game, it came down to a few things, but there's just been a lot of controversy about, maybe who was at fault, what to take away with this game, and a massive upset that Michigan had in a 10-13 win. So, I have been seeing a lot of stuff on social media, so I'm making this video to react about things I've seen and, people's opinions and takeaways from the game. And then I'm going to give mine because I feel like that's also pretty important. And I just want to see how, just really analyze this game in a way that I don't think a lot of people are and kind of just give my opinions on it. So the first thing I saw somebody was saying is that Ryan Day is fired if we don't get decently far into the playoffs. So here's my opinion. I think that is pretty true to some extent, and it's really a hard issue about Ryan Day, and just kind of goes hand in hand with the second one right here. Should Ryan Day be fired? I think if he were to win the national championship, which to be honest, after that Michigan game, I really don't think is going to happen. But if it were to happen, Ryan Day's not losing his job. That's pretty. That's a true statement. I don't think anybody can dispute that. Second, if he were to lose in the games before the national championship, I think if it was close, I don't think he would lose his job for sure. But if it was kind of like a blowout, his job should definitely be in question. And then if you were to lose in the first round of the playoffs, then yeah, he is not going to have a good chance. So I kind of agree with this. I think if he doesn't do pretty well in the playoffs, I would say he needs to win at least 2 playoff games to really have that job security that he'd probably want. However, I even after all that, I still don't know if he'll be fired, just because he does win a lot of games and he does recruit pretty well, and he does bring in a lot of talent and coaching staff. So I don't really know. Let me know what you guys think, because I really could go either way. I think it just all really depends. There's just a lot of scenarios that impact this stuff, If you were to get blown out first round, yeah, I would definitely start saying, maybe his job should be in pretty big question. But, I don't know. It just really depends. If he gets blown out, yeah, he probably won't be the coach, to be honest with you. Oh, shoot. But yeah, if he can go pretty far in the playoffs, then yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays the head coach. And if he wins the national championship, it's really hard to argue against that for him, because you win the national championship, there's no way, and there's no any way that he gets fired. Even though he's lost 4 straight to Michigan. So, second thing, should they fire Ryan Day? As of now, I would say no. And they're not going to before the end of the season, at least. And even at the end of the season, I don't know if they will. But right now, they definitely shouldn't. But I have been seeing a lot of other options that people like, such as JT Barrett, who's currently the quarterback coach at the Lions. And, people are saying what he's done with Jared Goff is really impressive, and that's something why they want to keep him. And then others are saying Mike Vrabel, who's not currently coaching, but he was the Titans coach. And other people like that. I personally think those two are not terrible options. The only problem is Ryan Day has experience as of now. So they're not going to fire him at this point in the season. But yeah, I really would like Mike Vrabel as a coach. I think one thing I like about him is that, and JT Barrett, the fact of the matter is that they're winners, and they've beaten Michigan. They've been able to, they know what it feels like to win, and they know how to get wins. And they're both from different eras, so they could both have different opinions. One of them could be an assistant coach even. But as of now, I think Ryan Day's not going to get fired. Personally, I would like to say, this is never going to happen, but I think it would be cool to say, like, Ryan Day, until you beat Michigan, you're not getting paid a salary because that game means so much to the fans. And if you aren't beating Michigan, then you shouldn't be our coach. So you can leave whenever you want, but if you can't beat Michigan, then you're not going to get paid from here. So, and then in that scenario, if he leaves, then we get one of those guys I've been talking about, like Vrabel or Barrett. But if he does win, then he starts getting paid more money. And I feel like that's a good incentivizer. But I've also been seeing this a lot. It's just Ryan Day, he just seems like he's scared, Like, he just doesn't seem like he's ever mentally prepared. I mean, it is crazy that he said losing to Michigan is, like, the second most mentally tough thing he's done besides, like, his daughter or dad or something committing suicide. So, I mean, that is crazy. And just the mental aspect of it for Ryan Day isn't really talked about a lot, but that could become a serious issue. It's like, is he even mentally able to take on the pressure of being the Ohio State head coach? And that is something that that really should go into question, I feel like, because it's really an underrated aspect of being a head coach. And yes, he has hired other coaches to help him out with that pressure, but still, I mean, nobody's talking about how bad Jim Knowles was. People are talking about Chip Kelly, but nobody was talking about Brian Hartline or Justin Fry or James Laurinaitis. All they're talking about was Ryan Day losing the game. So mentally, that is another reason why he could be fired, just because Ohio State might not think at this point it's healthy for him to be the coach, and he's just capable of it. But, like I said earlier, it really just depends on the playoffs. If he can, go far in the playoffs, he's not going to get fired, and Ohio State won't fire him. Even if he does bad, I think it's going to be very hard to fire him just because of his winning percentages. And, I mean, he has beaten Michigan. He does get he does get good recruits and coaching staff that are really talented. But, yeah, I mean, it's a really bad look for him right now. He needed that game more than anything really this season. Yeah, it's really just a bad situation for Ohio State if you think about it. There's really just no good way to truly handle this issue because there's just a lot of unknowns. And Ryan Day, what if we were to fire him, but then if we didn't fire him, he was going to win 5 straight? I think the thing that keeps him in coaching contention is that there's still the unknown. It's like the what if. Like, if he could beat Michigan, what if he does beat Michigan? It's just hard to fire him because he has beaten Michigan once, but he's also lost them 4 straight. But it's also hard to fire him because what if he does go on a tear and starts beating them every year? Like, you just don't know. And that's why I don't think they're going to fire him. Should they fire him? Maybe. I don't think they should as of now. Later down the road, we'll see what happens. But as of now, they shouldn't fire Ryan Day. And then, third one, OSU needs a non-white quarterback to win. I hear a lot of people talking about this, and to be quite honest, I don't know about it, man. It just really seems like a stupid take to me. I mean, saying that you need a white quarterback to win, I don't know. I think the thing is, it's not really about race or color or background. I think the thing that people like is their typically quarterbacks that are of non-white descent, like African Americans, all these people that like JT Barrett, Braxton Miller, Dwayne Haskins, even like all these guys, what they have is just a certain amount of aura, I guess you could say, a certain amount of dedication and hard work that a lot of other like white quarterbacks don't really have. You think about Kyle McCord, Will Howard. Will Howard still has to prove it, but you just think about some of these white quarterbacks that just don't really have that aura to them. And I think that's what Ohio State fans want, is that person that's going to get the team hyped up, the person that will initiate hits when running, the person that's tough, the person that is able to really rally the team when there's really nobody else who can rally them in really desperate times. And I think that's something that people want. And you haven't really seen that with Kyle McCord. CJ Stroud, I don't really think of that category that people are talking about. He seems more like, I don't know. I mean, C.J. Stroud was 0-2 against Michigan. I don't think that people are talking about him when they're referring to non-white quarterbacks necessarily. They're talking more about, like I said, J.D. Barrett, who I grew up watching a lot. And, I mean, I don't think he ever lost against Michigan. So, yeah, there's something to be said about that. And I truly think it comes down to their aura. Like, I know that sounds stupid, but their ability to get the team behind them and really just be feared. You know, I don't think Will Howard's feared by Michigan. I don't think Kyle McCord was feared by Michigan. I don't really think C.J. Stroud was feared. And maybe his passing ability was, but his physicality was definitely not. And you just need physical people who are able to take hits and act like nothing happened, able to initiate contact, and able to get their team rallied behind them. And that's something that Ohio State really hasn't seen. So, yeah, I think Ohio State doesn't need a non-white quarterback to win, but I think if they were to have a white quarterback, it would need to be somebody with those characteristics that I mentioned. And, that's my take on that. And then this is something my friend said. Ryan Day shouldn't be fired because he got the team to a really good season, and OSU is still one of the best teams in college football. With that being said, there needs to be a pretty big mentally switch with OSU because that's what it comes down to. They showed more aggressiveness and fight after the game than during the game, and they spent more effort trying to seem more tough than actually being more tough. Michigan is a bad team with their worst season in recent memory, and that's coming from me, who's a Michigan fan. So it is unacceptable for a $20 million team to lose to a team that has nearly zero returning players who won a national championship. The game doesn't come down to skill. It comes down to mentality, and when we think about it, that's what decided this rivalry game every single year, mentality. So there's a lot to dissect here. I'm just going to talk about this first section. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Ryan Day, he has a really good team, and, you know, they're still one of the best teams in football. I think it's easy to forget about this, but Ohio State is easily a top 10 team in the country still. I know the loss is bad, but yeah, they're still a top team in the country. They still have top talent. They still have, when healthy, one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best wide receiver groups, one of the best defenses in the country. I mean, defense played out of their mind. There's no questioning the defense. Defense really is the only reason why Ohio State was even close in that game. The offense was terrible, and the fact that it was still able to be only a 3-point game really says something about them. And I'm not going to hate on the defense one bit this live stream because they really just kept the team in the game, and they're the reason that we only lost by 3. So, I still think that Ryan Day, I already talked about him if he should be fired or not. It really just depends in my opinion. But yeah, as of now, he definitely shouldn't be fired. He gets the teams to really good places that a lot of coaches wish that they could get their team to Ohio State level consistently for the past 5 years. So, yeah, I agree with this part. That's my take. And then with that being said, there needs to be a pretty big mentally switch with OSU because that's what it comes down to. Yeah, I would agree. Like, Ohio State, you can have all the talent in the world, but you think about the best Ohio State teams to beat Michigan, and even in the trailers, go watch the Ohio State hype trailer. I'm sure you could watch Michigan's too. I haven't seen it, but I mean, if you watch that, it's like Ohio State. Oh, hold up, never mind. I was seeing if you could change that. But if you think about it, like, all the good teams are the ones that have mental toughness and are physically tough and ready to, like, kill people. And yeah, there definitely needs to be a switch because it seems like Ohio State is, as of now under Ryan Day, they're trying to play more for style, like trying to look cute when they play. That's not a good descriptor, but they're not trying to look like tough. They're trying to look like they're skilled and good players. When that doesn't even matter. You think Michigan cares how many stars Emeka Egbuka had when he was in college or high school, or how many stars our offensive linemen have, or how many stars Will Howard has? No, they don't care. And all they care about is winning the game. And that's something that really just has impacted the game because Michigan, all they care about is winning the game. They don't care about records, the other opponents, teams, or skill players. All they care about is analyzing the team and really just trying to dominate in their part of the game, which is the run game. And, yeah, I mean, they've mentally won the game every time, which has led them to physically win in the trenches. And like this, he said they showed more aggressiveness in fight after the game than during the game. That kind of goes hand in hand because I think everybody knew the game was going to go between offensive and defensive lines for both teams. Whoever could win those was going to win the game. And yeah, I mean, the defensive line didn't generate any pressure, especially on the inside. And I know Ohio State's missing one of their linemen, but still, I mean, no pressure is crazy. I mean, yeah, they just had no aggressiveness. They had no fight, really. They just didn't look like they didn't want to win, almost. And I know that's not the case because all the seniors came back to win. And it's really frustrating for them, but yeah, they didn't show really much aggressiveness. And then on the offensive line, they just looked like they were just trying to scrape by. They weren't trying to win the game. They were just trying to not lose it. And I think you can really see that throughout the game, but specifically with the offensive line, yeah, I mean, they were just trying to prevent them from getting to Will Howard or getting Travion Henderson, whereas Michigan was trying to push back RD linemen. Michigan was trying to win the line of scrimmage. Ohio State was just trying to not lose it. And that is really what the game came down to. And I completely agree with he's saying. And after the game, that whole fighting thing, I'll probably get to that later. But, yeah, it was just interesting. I'll talk about that later. But, yeah. Michigan is a bad team with their worst season in recent memory. And that's coming from me, who's a Michigan fan. So it's unacceptable for a $20 million team to lose to a team that has nearly zero returning players who won a national championship. Yeah. It is really bad. I mean, $20 million roster. Yeah, but I really just think this shows the game doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter how skillful your players are, how much money you spent on the team. It matters how much toughness you have, how much fight you have, how badly you want to win the game. And Michigan just wanted it more. And they worked harder for it, and they prepared better for it. And, yeah, I mean, they beat us. It is quite embarrassing, actually, if you're an Ohio State fan, to see your team, I mean, just get absolutely dominated, honestly. And I know it's only 3 points, but they got dominated, except for a few big plays that made the game not look as bad as it was. But, yeah, they got dominated as a $20 million roster, so that's really unacceptable. And, I mean, it's Michigan. They had, 6 wins. That's terrible. And it was at home in front of your crowd who was trying to get loud, but, I mean, there's nothing to cheer for. You guys just got dominated. And it's just really tough to see because these fans have waited so long. I mean, this is the longest drought for, probably half Ohio State fans. All these, newer kids, they've never seen Ohio State lose 4 times in a row. Maybe not even ever seen Ohio State lose before this 4-game losing streak. So when you have these fans that are just desperate to see Ohio State win, and when you have a $20 million roster going against a 6-5 team at home, and you still lose, I mean, that's just unacceptable, man. That is just a disgrace to Ohio State fans. It's a disgrace to college football just because, not a disgrace, but, it just looks bad. And I think one thing you can take away, this game is going to be talked about all offseason, is that NIL might not have as much of an impact as people think because you can get top players, but it's about how you develop them. It's about how you train them and prepare them mentally and how, truly at the end of the day, it just comes down to development. And Michigan has just developed their players better for that game than Ohio State did. And, yeah. So that's that. And then the game didn't come down to skill. It came down to mentality. And when we think about it, that's what decided the rivalry game every single year, mentality. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been saying. Mentality is a really big factor. It's not about skill. So it's really tough to see if you're an Ohio State fan. And if you're a Michigan fan, you got to feel so happy. That is a good season. Your talent, Will Johnson didn't play. Colson Loveland didn't play. Sharon Moore's your coach who, honestly, people are kind of uncertain about how good of a coach he was. And they dominated. So you got to feel good if you're a Michigan fan. If you're an Ohio State fan, yes, the playoffs are still coming, but no matter what, unless we win the national championship, this season is going to feel like a complete loss, which is really frustrating because all offseason everybody was talking about how it's going to be such a great team. Ohio State's not going to lose a game, except maybe Oregon. Yeah, really tough to see. Not going to be at the Big Ten Championship for another year in a row. Yeah, it's really frustrating. Yeah, it's really tough to see. So, moving on from that, the fifth one, this is kind of a joke one I put in. One of my friends just said Kentucky would beat OSU. He's a Kentucky fan, so, Kentucky, I feel like, does get kind of a bad rep just because they play against pretty solid teams, and they have played other teams close, like Kentucky. I think they blew out South Carolina, actually. Yeah, I think they did blow out South Carolina, actually, pretty early on in the season, so, that makes them look good, but this is just a funny statement. That would never happen. Yeah, that's just not happening. No matter how bad Ryan Day is, and while he does suck, that's not happening, bro. Hate to break it to you. Sixth thing is that somebody said a 1-3 loss team is going to get in from the SEC. It's pretty much like after Ohio State loss and all this crap going on, there's probably going to be 1-3 loss team from the SEC that gets in, and who is it? And then this is my response that I commented on that post. By the way, be sure to go check out my Twitter account at @thespiral_pod. I'm going to be way more active than I have been recently, so be sure to go leave a like, all that stuff. And, just react to my comments on this post that makes no sense. And my response says neither. Both Bama lost to Oklahoma. Oh, yeah, it was Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Yeah, none of those teams. It pretty much comes down to Bama or South Carolina because Ole Miss isn't. But, I said neither Bama or South Carolina should. Yeah, Bama lost to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns. Let that sink in. 3 touchdowns? Are you kidding me? 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma. I don't even think they won like 1 in-conference game at that point. Maybe 2. It's just terrible. And the fact that team is still in contention to make the playoffs is just insane to me. Like, you cannot tell me that I try to be unbiased, as an unbiased Big Ten fan, you cannot tell me that there's not a single bit of Alabama and SEC bias going on. Can you imagine if Ohio State had 3 losses? People are saying they shouldn't even be in it with 2, let alone losing to Oklahoma or an Oklahoma-level caliber team by 21 points the second last week of college football season. Can you believe it? People are saying Notre Dame shouldn't be in for losing to NIU in week 2. And people are saying Bama should still be in after losing to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns in the second to last week of the season. It'd be different if it was like a fluke game in week 5. But no, this is second to last week of the season. This is the second last game the committee is going to be taking into account, and they're going to be looking at that and say, yeah, this is a playoff team. There's just no way. There's just no way Bama should get in the playoffs. And I have a feeling they will just because it's Bama. They have a large fan base. But Alabama's going to get crapped on in the playoffs no matter who they play. And I stand by that. And even if they would be so many in the playoffs, they just don't deserve to be in the playoffs. They have 3 losses, okay? This is just unacceptable. And they beat South Carolina. And South Carolina has lost to Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss. And all of those teams are on the decline. Just talked about Bama. They have 3 losses. One of them to Oklahoma. Other one to Vanderbilt, by the way. Can you imagine if any other team besides an SEC team, specifically Bama, lost to a Vanderbilt and Oklahoma team in the same season, and we're still going to make the playoffs? That would just sound ridiculous, right? But when you put Alabama's name in it, it's fine. Yeah, Alabama's really talented. They've only lost to teams that have beaten Alabama. So, yeah, it's just ridiculous. South Carolina, honestly, I think if they played Alabama, they would win. But if you can't put Bama in, it's really hard to put South Carolina in. And I know they've been playing really good. Trust me, I think if they beat Alabama, I would say, honestly, yeah, they should be in the playoffs. But no, they just can't. They have 3 losses. They lost to an LSU team that lost to Florida. They've lost to, they lost to USC early on this season. Let's not forget that. USC team is looking terrible now. And an Ole Miss team that just quite frankly isn't that good. Jackson Dart is looking terrible now. I mean, these losses just aged terribly for them. I just can't see a world where South Carolina gets in, especially because Bama can't get in. Then I feel like South Carolina shouldn't be in either. So that's my take on that. I just think it's crazy. We just have to take a moment and realize, how in the world are we letting SEC people say that this stuff is going to happen? I mean, there are so many more teams that are deserving, but no, a 3-loss SEC team will probably get like a 10 or 9 seed in the playoffs, which is just ridiculous. And it should never happen, but it is. And yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, so I got about 3 more here I'm going to react to. This one is from Big Game Boomer, and he said South Carolina should be in the college football playoff over Ohio State. Shane Beamer would smoke Ryan Day. I mean, that is just insane to say. South Carolina should be in the college football playoff over Ohio State. Keep in mind, the number 2 ranked team for most of the season, number 3, number 2 team ranked. I think they're going to be number 7 now. But that is just crazy, man. I don't know how you can actually say that and actually truly, with your whole heart, believe that. That is just not true. I mean, all right, this is my response. All right, that's crazy. Ohio State loses to the number 1 team on the road, and I will admit, a terrible loss to the rivals where they definitely should have won. Whereas South Carolina, like I talked about earlier, has 3 losses, all of which are starting to look worse, like worse and worse losses. So, I mean, how do you disagree with that? 3 losses, objectively, is just worse than 2 losses, first of all. Ohio State has a really good loss to Oregon. South Carolina has no good losses, and Ohio State has 1 less loss. And Ohio State has been looking really good all season. They've lost by a total of 4 points. I mean, it's really hard to say that they should not be in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, that is just a tear. I know this is probably sarcasm and just people going crazy on Ryan Day for losing, but truly, how do you believe that? I mean, that is actually just a crazy statement. I don't care how bad. I don't know. This guy's got to be joking. It has to be sarcasm because there's no way somebody thinks that. I mean, please let me know if you guys agree with that. I mean, there's just no way people can actually think about, like, actually agree with that. There's just no way. So, yeah, that is absolutely insane to me. If somebody agrees with that, please let me know why, because there is just no way I can see any scenario where South Carolina is a higher-ranked team in the playoffs than Ohio State. So, that's just insane. That guy's got to be trolling at this point. And then this is Ryan Day after, on the field scandal, after the game. He said, I don't know all the details of it, but I know that those guys are looking to put a flag on our field, and our guys weren't going to let that happen. I'll find out exactly what happened, but this is our field. Certainly, we're embarrassed. This is our field. Certainly, we're embarrassed with the fact that we lost the game, but there are some prideful guys on the team that weren't going to let that happen. And that's Ryan Day. Yeah. So, I mean, this is my take. I mean, maybe defend the turf by beating them while playing the game. It doesn't matter what happens after it. I mean, if they want to play in it, so be it. And I would say, if we beat them on their field next year, for example, I would say, yeah, go and put our flag in their field. I think that is fair. I mean, there's a 6-5 team who came into the number 2 team's stadium and beat them pretty handedly. So, yeah, I don't know what Ryan Day is talking about. I feel like, yes, I do agree to some extent that your players should be stood up for and stick up for what they are, fighting for. But at the same time, it's like, maybe you should have just beat them on the field and beat them in the game. And, yeah, I mean, if you're not happy about what Michigan is doing after the game more than what happened in the game, then first of all, that's just ridiculous because, I mean, you're the head coach. You should be able to beat a 6-5 Michigan team in your own stadium. And then second of all, like, why do you guys care so much? I mean, yeah, it's disrespectful, but that's kind of the point. I mean, it's a huge upset. I mean, yeah, like I said, if we went to Michigan Stadium and then beat them when we were especially underranked by them by a lot, yeah, I would say go and put our flag in their field because that's just a really good win for that program. So that's probably how Michigan feels, and as much as I hate it, yeah, I mean, if you're going to complain about it, maybe you should have prepared your guys better, and maybe you should have won the game, actually. So, while I understand his frustration, it's like maybe you should have prepared your team better to a way that would make it so you guys would actually win the game. And you guys should have won the game, and you didn't. So, really just quite embarrassing. Yeah. I don't know. It's all a crazy situation. I mean, yeah. And then this is the last one I'm going to react to. I kind of hinted about this earlier. But this guy's saying I've seen suggestions of JT Barrett, James Laurinaitis, and Eddie George to be the next head coach at Ohio State. And this guy's saying, like, you guys have truly lost your minds. So, just initially on that, you guys can see my response if you want to read it. I'll try to talk about it in a sec. But, yeah, I mean, Ryan Day, it's such a hard situation, but Ryan Day is one of the best coaches in college football. And there's no doubting that. There's no denying it. You look at his record, he wins almost all the games. I mean, you think about it this season, he lost to Oregon by 1 point. Probably should have won that game if it weren't for a crappy offensive pass interference call on Jeremiah Smith. Although, after our kicker's performance, I don't know. By the way, our kicker looked terrible. I don't know how that guy is a junior and has had D1 offers and is shanking like 30-yarders at home. It's embarrassing, actually. Yeah, so, I mean, Ryan Day is just a really great coach, and if you disagree with that, then I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, so he barely lost to Oregon, probably should have won, and then he beat Penn State on the road pretty handedly, and then beat Indiana pretty handedly at home, who were both top 5 matchups, and lost to Michigan, which just completely ruins his reputation. But still, I mean, he still had a pretty decent season. I mean, with that hard of a schedule, yeah, that's pretty good. And these people are saying, like, JT Barrett, James Laurinaitis, I mean, while they probably could be decent coaches, I mean, Ryan Day has experience. He's been in tough places. He's probably one of the only coaches in college football that can compete at this moment with Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, all these top coaches, Brent Venables, like all these guys that are just really elite coaches, the premier coaches of college football. And I don't think any of these guys that those guys are saying could do that. I mean, it would definitely take some time. And Ohio State fans clearly want instant success. So if you fire Ryan Day for one of those guys, and then don't get mad when Ohio State loses 4 games this season, Like, yeah, I mean, Ryan Day is still a really great coach. So that part is that. And then my response to that was I truly think the next month decides his fate. A terrible postseason performance also almost certainly loses him his job, no matter how good the recruiting is. Big games matter more than recruiting. And while they go together somewhat decently, or somewhat hand in hand, some new person would probably recruit well. I do think the next month decides his fate. I still stand by that. It's really interesting. If he were to win the national championship, none of what I'm talking about matters because a national championship coach, he's not getting fired. But yeah, I mean, if he does terrible in the postseason, I mean, I want to say almost certainly now. I would probably say there's a good shot that he gets fired just because of his Michigan non-successfulness and the fact that I mean. Yeah, he couldn't do anything in the postseason with this roster still. That's just embarrassing. And the good thing about this is that he's getting a lot of criticism and a lot of things that they should hopefully fix before the playoff games. So, if anything, that is a good thing, is that he's getting information. Hopefully, Chip Kelly is going to coach a better game next time we play someone important. But, yeah, that's that. And I still stand by this, that big games matter more than the recruiting. And, while they probably, how big games and recruiting go in hand, which is something that Ryan Day does bring, is that he has good recruiting, but he can't win the big games. So it's kind of interesting to see that correlation, which usually I would say you have better recruiting, you would have a better team and win more big games. But with Ryan Day, it's a little iffy on that. I still think that some new person could probably recruit just as well as Ryan Day. And if anything, maybe more, just because people would want to come play to a new, revamped Ohio State team where they can truly believe that they would beat Michigan. And I think even after looking at this, like, something even bigger than this is that you don't really need top recruits in every aspect of the field. You just need players that are willing to win and willing to work hard and have that mentality to be coached, to be trained, and to be better players and ready to fight against the team up north. So, yeah, I truly think that's something to think about. Yeah, and I don't know, man. It's just hard to imagine Ryan Day not being the head coach. I mean, he's had experience from Urban Meyer. He wins a lot of games. It's just going to be really interesting to see what happens. Until by like February, March time, we should know what Ryan Day's fate will be. But as of now, it's really interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, the big games matter more. And if Ryan Day can only be a recruiter, yeah, he should be fired. But as of now, people who are saying for him to get fired instantly and that he needs to be fired is just flat out ridiculous. I completely describe that. It is ridiculous. I mean, Ohio State fans, we have it so well. I mean, you just look at other teams and you see all these upsets, and you just wonder, like, Ohio State hasn't had any upsets to these guys or anything like that. And you guys are calling for him to be fired after losing, on average, like 1 or 2 games this season. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but Urban Meyer was losing to Purdue, Iowa, all these like crappy teams that hurt our playoff contention severely. And yeah, he did beat Michigan, but he didn't really make the playoffs a ton because of that. And when he did, it's not like we still won a lot of them. I mean, we won the national championship, but yeah, I mean, I think Urban Meyer still is going to be a good coach because of his record against Michigan, but I don't know that it's certain that these guys will have good records against Michigan. And just because Ryan Day isn't right now, I don't know if James Laurinaitis. I definitely don't think James Laurinaitis should be one. Eddie George, I believe he's the Middle Tennessee State head coach right now, so he probably would be the best option. And JT Barrett would be a good option too because he's a player like Eddie George, and he's the quarterback coach for the Lions right now. So, yeah, if Ryan Day doesn't do good this offseason, then yeah, I would say JT Barrett or Eddie George would probably be good options. And Mike Vrabel too. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. Maybe the most, actually. But yeah, we're going to have to see the next month, and that's truly going to decide his fate. So let me know if you guys have any comments on that. Let me know if you guys have any opinions on what I've said, because I do think what I've said is pretty accurate, and I would like to hear your guys' opinion as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you tuned into this, it really means a lot. I might start trying to do more live streams, so let me know if you guys like that. And I'll see you guys soon. So see ya. And thanks for watching. And also be sure to leave a like and subscribe, obviously, but you don't have to.